awesome episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh show going right now, and we've got extra special guests, guys. We've doubled up, so not only have we got the amazing Sanctum squad, we've got a very special visitor as well. Who have we got?
Your resident vlogging YouTube Yu-Gi-Oh extraordinaire, Jimothy YGO.
Woo!
Jimothy.
Right, yeah, so you know what, look, so like I said, we all of us, like, we all know each other in real life, but just for those of you who haven't heard of the amazing Jimothy, we're gonna let him do a little bit of an introduction, guys, because we want to see we want to know a little bit more about him. So yeah, bro, lay it on us, man. What led you into doing your channel and stuff, a little bit about you, all of that stuff.
Just as a bit of a background, because a lot of people tend to ask me this, like, why Jimothy? So I play a lot of PlayStation. Well, I used to anyway. And one of my friends used to call me. I used to my name was Man Like Jimmy on it, and one guy just started calling me Jimothy, and it kind of stuck with me. So I ran with it. In terms of Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm a very passionate guy, and I like social interactions. So Yu-Gi-Oh was always a fit for me. I went away from the game for quite some time. And when I came back, it was a big shock to the system, especially with the link arrows and all these monsters taking extra monster zones and that kind of thing. But yeah, I kind of got back into it, and I fell in love with the game again, and so much so that I decided to start a YouTube channel.
Jeez, loving it. I feel like that's like a lot of us. For me, I don't know about you guys, but I remember when I first started playing, it was similar as well. When I saw Link stuff come into the game, I was like, what is going on? This is not the Yu-Gi-Oh I remember at all. It's just like,
yeah, it's a bit confusing generally.
Yeah,
Cause I think I started playing like competitively. I think it was just as Link started coming in, like spiral format, whatever you. So it was kind of just like, yeah, I've always known how, like, this is how you play the game. It was when Master Rule 5 came out that I was like, oh wow, all these decks would, I can play. Yeah. I don't need to play Mrs. Radiant or something.
I think it was like right as what was it? It was right at the end of 2019 when I first started playing, and it like seeing the Link arrows for the first time. It just really. It was a bit weird at first, but then after some time of getting used to it, it was just fine. And then Master Rule 5 came about, and it was like, oh, okay, so we're just going to bypass all these rules that we've just known for like 6 months or something.
They've been playing a bit harder and faster with the way the game is lately. Yeah, the last 3 Master Rules, it's like they've seemed like small changes, but they've all actually been really huge in how the game plays. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Like even like from the initial introduction of Link arrows, and then to the whole change from Master Rule 4 to 5, which I think most people liked, but that was even a massive change because it just opened up the floor for like, you didn't need Link monsters anymore. Like, it was an option, as opposed to you have to play Link monsters, otherwise get defeated by Kaiju.
I think it gave a bit of a change of mentality, because I know there was an argument to be made that arguably with the Link arrows it was a little bit more technical, because if you made a mistake, you literally just couldn't get a monster out.
Yeah,
you were stuck. So I think that aspect of it is slightly changed the mindset in a sense that you can kind of put a lot more monsters on the field with less restriction, if you go what I mean.
100%. Like certain decks, like DDD, for example, it's like your combos. Like, people say DDD is complex, but back in MR4, DDD was really frustrating because you can, if you summon your Gilgamesh too early, you just lose. You literally just lose.
I don't want to be disrespectful, but was DDD playable in MR4?
No, you literally got you got the structure deck, and then the next day, Master Rule 4 happened, and
it wasn't until it wasn't until right at the end, basically, where they got Gilgamesh, and then it was like, by then it was too late because the game had power crept so much that we never really got to experience what the deck would have been like back in Master Rule 3.
It was so weird as well in like Master Rule 4 as well, because decks that we know nowadays had to play such an absurd amount of Link monsters to do anything. And then like the deck, for example, that I can think of is Shaddoll Invoked. Back in like Master Rule 4, you were playing like only 4 invoked cards, 2 like not even a big enough invoked package, and then you would just try and fill the extra slots with like Cross Sheep, Unicorn, Appaloosa, Borals, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
just to like even free up the arrows. That, to be fair, I did see a discussion about this on Facebook, so I'll pose the question to you guys in it. If we were to go back to Master Rule 4, how many decks that have been viable since Master Rule 5 do you think would still be viable? Like, I was thinking about this with Sprite. I think Sprite would maybe be able to play, but I think it would have to change up the lines quite a bit.
Sprite would.
But then you can overlay gigantic.
Sprite
so...
would have a really interesting. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like Sprite had a really if it can summon X-Link monsters, so it's completely fine. But I think decks like Tyr may struggle a bit, and then also, I don't know.
Yeah,
Basically,
Tyr would struggle
I
hugely. Impermanent Kit Colossus end of their turn. That's the Master Rule.
Yeah, that's true.
He did. Like that Kit Colossus did nothing.
I saw. But it's also like any deck that revolves around one specific mechanic, I think would definitely have a difficult time.
Branded becomes unplayable. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think unplayable. I think just very, very awkward.
Yeah, I mean, because you're gonna summon...
you summon your one Mirror Jade.
That's it. You summon Mirror Jade.
You just play Branded Striker in it at that point. You play like Widowmaker, isn't that?
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Oh, it becomes the control deck,
Stop.
innit?
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah,
Not many.
I think one thing I did like about Master Rule 4 is that it did slow the game down a lot compared to now.
You think?
Yeah, because as a result, so
Yeah,
it's
I
funny
agree.
because as a result of a lot of decks being forced to play Link monsters, it meant that you didn't have as much space to play random decks just to raise the ceiling of your deck. And so it's funny enough, that's why it's like everyone always talks about Spiral being one of the strongest tier 0 decks ever. But Spiral's actually really crap. It's just that it was one of the few decks that could play Link format. That's why it was actually so strong. Like if you look at, there was literally no other good decks in its format. And so it's like, that's what I think. It's like if we look at the power level of Master Rule 4 decks compared to Master Rule 5, other than some very few exceptions, like the whole Danger Chaos Thunder Dragon nonsense with like 50,000 Skull Dreads and spamming Dangers, there wasn't actually that many like really high ceiling decks because Link monsters made it hard to do it.
I get the point that you're making, but I'd have to completely disagree that Master Rule 4 slowed the game down. That's just a take I don't agree with, innit?
Oh, actually, you know what? You're right. Let me not say slowed the game down. You're wrong. I mean, slowed down compared to now. As in, so I feel like the game now is a lot faster as a result of the Master Rule trade. But yeah, you're right. Compared from Master Rule 3 to 4, no. So slow the game down is the wrong way to put it. Yeah, you're
To be
right.
honest,
It's an interesting take, though, to be fair.
I think that was the idea of it, though, because the game was getting a little bit out of hand in terms of the speed of it, and I wanted to just kind of like rein it in so it's a bit more enticing for new players. But
yeah, because
they've kind of
something like your entire hand was like way too good, to the point where you had to hit that before it just got out of hand.
and it's not like you couldn't do crazy things before, but I think the removal of the restriction now, it just means that the game is just like super fast, and I suppose it's more of a spectacle to watch, which is ideally what they want. Do you know what I mean? You don't want a 16 turn match on YCS Dortmund waiting for somebody to flip a mirror forward. Do you know what I mean?
Speaking of dictating, let's talk about what's been happening at the latest YCSs.
Yeah.
Right. I'm on my entire deck.
I don't know about you guys, but I've had the most fun watching competitive Yu-Gi-Oh over the last few months than I have in a long time in it. Like, I know people can say what they like about Tier 0 formats, but like this Ishizu Tears deck, I'm kind of here for it, man. Like, I played it again the first time at locals last night, and it was so it was actually felt exhilarating, like, to try and like almost have that uphill battle. Maybe I'm just a bit of a sadist, I don't know, but
yeah, maybe you just like the pain.
Maybe, but I think like because there's so much going on like in the game now. It's wild to watch. I think, and I think that's so fun. But I'll put the question to you in it.
I think it's really good that like Yu-Gi-Oh as a card game is one of the most insane games to watch from outside of things, because we don't have a resource system like other games do. For example, like Magic has lands, Pokemon has energy, that kind of thing. So you can basically go all out on turn one if you really, really wanted to.
Yeah.
And Ishizu Tears is basically just I'm trying to think of the right word here. Is not a presentation. It's more of a personification of that, basically.
Yeah.
You can pretty much just go off from having the most basic hand. And it's not like the end board is anything extraordinary, but it's the amount of access you have to some of the best cards in the game. And you literally can take almost the full game span just doing your turn. Yeah. And you'll always have interactivity.
Yeah, I'd say like one of the differences we've seen is that the whole kind of concept of an unbreakable board was a big part of Yu-Gi-Oh before. That was, or not before, but at least in the last kind of 1 or 2 years, I think of decks like Adamant Spare where you literally can't break the board. But it's changed a lot now, and it's less about unbreakable boards. The top decks are just decks that make a big board from very little resources, and then it doesn't matter if you break it, because next time they just make it again. And that's like tier to a T. Like, it literally, if you kill any of their monsters, they just come back and then gain advantage. So it's like you just get punished. Like you super if you super poly the Kit Coloss and the Kaleido Heart, they're both gonna come back. One of them's gonna mill a bunch of one of them's gonna mill a bunch of cards that will probably fuse. One of them's gonna come back and then send a card so it can fuse. And so
Sorry, carry on.
no, just that. Yeah, like so it's so difficult to play against, so difficult to deal with. But yeah, you go on, bro.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's interesting thinking about that deck specifically because typically it's not like a deck we've seen before because it can kind of play like a control style, especially with like the crime and the Suliek, but then it can also just be a very, very explosive combo deck and the ability to also play on both players' turns and have a lot of disruption or interaction basically makes it quite formidable. And I think that's one thing that's come out of like this quote unquote tier 0 format is the fact that it does require a lot of skill to play because there's so many moving parts to the deck.
Yeah, like you have to have like 1,000 IQ brain almost to know the Ishizu mirror off by heart because, well, not off by heart, sorry, but more to the point where you know most of the interactions, and it does take quite a lot of skill to play. And it's also the fact of some of the new cards that were printed that tier elements just needed, like the ability to basically rotor and spec the monster out of the deck and just go off with your plays is one of those. It's one of the consistency pieces that it really, really needed, as well as the Ishizu stuff.
One of the things that I think is definitely going to be interesting to see is if Konami actually does hit it or not. I'm still of the opinion that they won't, but I mean, look, Konami have surprised me before, so.
I mean, we didn't expect Ronin, and then
Yeah.
so it's all up in the air, really. I think if things go according to the way that things have gone in the OCG, then we might see a hit or two. But I think it will be to tier rather than the Ishizu stuff, mainly because they won't always hit the new product.
Yeah,
They'll
I'll be shocked
always
if they
hit
hit the new stuff. I'll be really shocked.
The Ishizu stuff doesn't. The hot taking it. The Ishizu stuff doesn't need to be hit. It's the tier stuff because like the Ishizu and Naturia deck and like the Ishizu, is it the Madolche deck you can play in as well?
Oh god,
it's really interesting. Like the oppressive thing about the Ishizu is the fact it's in the tier deck.
Yeah,
but I think anyway.
I think it's a combination of both. I agree though because I think when you play other Ishizu decks, it's not the same as tier. Because it's like Ishizu is really good at controlling the grave, but getting them into the grave in the first place is quite hard. And the Ishizu cards aren't amazing, so I agree with that. In that tier facilitates the ability to just put them all in the grave, and then now your Ishizu engine's online straight away.
Yeah.
So I do agree with that. But to me, it's just a combination of both because it's like the tier cards need to be hit because I thought they were broken before. But then I do think the Ishizu cards, the sad kind of bit about them now is that it really feels like if you're playing a graveyard strat, you're either playing Ishizu or you're not playing a graveyard strat because you don't get to use your graveyard. That's why Madolche is so good. That's why Madolche and Naturia are probably two of the best decks in this format to kind of combat it. Because Naturia, you put your Sacred Trees in the graveyard. You don't care if they shuffle it back because you've got the searches already. And Madolche uses the graveyard, but in a much different way to every other graveyard deck in that it uses the graveyard as fuel to do its plays. So it doesn't really care if you shuffle cards back if someone shuffles your cards back in Madolche with their Shizu stuff, you just get your Madolche effect, so you don't care anyway.
Not even gonna lie, when I saw the Madolche was topping, I was quite happy because I think the deck is very, very strong in its own mechanics, and if you build it to a way where you can understand the deck and you understand the plays that can, it's just one of those decks that it's like BA. It will stand the test of time because of the fact of how consistent it is in its own engine, and the fact you can.
It is quite like BA, Nathan. You're right in terms of both decks are realistically not very good anymore.
I wouldn't call it consistent. I would say the thing about Madolche is essentially they have a combo that goes like +5, and if your opponent doesn't know how to play against it and they don't know where to hit you, they will almost always lose because it can unless it's a towers, it can out anything.
So that was more the point I was trying to get to.
I think you are right though. Like jokes aside in it, like the fact that like all these old decks are being able to be innovated thanks to new support. That's something I've always loved about Yu-Gi-Oh, to be honest. So I think it's cool that like you're getting random decks like Madolche and Draco Slayer and what have you, topping in this scary tier 0 format.
Yeah, I think going back to your point,
Yeah.
Fabs,
Yeah.
what you were saying about Konami looking at tiers, I think it's an interesting one because realistically, it takes a lot of brain power to play, as we know, but then also as a spectacle, it can be difficult to watch unless you're attuned to it, and it can be a little bit discouraging for newer players. Like they're seeing Chain Link 7 or 8, 9, and they can't really comprehend what's going on, and then it goes hand in hand with if you're not playing an Ishizu deck, then what deck are you playing really? Flunder.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
You know what I mean?
you're either
So-
playing a Shizu or playing something that counters it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then what are Konami doing then? Are they going to try and like push for some kind of like ban list that kind of influences players to kind of purchase new cards, or just leave it as it is and just everyone plays the Shizu tier?
Now play pure Zubi base.
I think the last tier 0 format I can really remember is, well, it's when I was coming into the game really, is like Spiral when it first came out and Double Helix was printed, and it was like 30 out of 32 decks were consistently Spiral in Top Cut, and I think from there it was an emergency ban list to the point where it was like it not done due to product, it was done due to, okay, this is actually like unhealthy for the game, like from an outsider's perspective. So I do think if there is a ban list, it won't be one that is made to sell product. I think it will just be one to just like encourage,
Balance.
encourage balance. I think.
Yeah.
I think anyway.
Do you know what I'm worried about though? Because even though sometimes Konami does that, sometimes when their ban list, they make no sense. Like, I just can't figure out what they do. So it's like, I'm so hopeful that it's like the next ban list I see bare tier hits. And to be honest, Sprite as well, because Sprite is actually an unfair deck. It just so happens that tier is more unfair.
Yeah, because I remember over the last few ban lists, it's been pretty hit and miss.
I wouldn't be surprised if they nerf Draco Slayers randomly, bro. I legit.
Oh,
that sounds about Konami to me.
They hit Desires to 1 with no reasoning whatsoever, and then brought it back to 2.
They hit
and
the
then
Sword Soul in it, but then they conveniently forgot that Sword Soul's probably the strongest deck that doesn't actually care about Desires. Meanwhile, all the rogue decks were using it.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see. But I guess let's going back to what you initially mentioned, Daniel, with YCS Pastino. So, did we all watch the whole Joshua Schmidt match versus? It sounds right.
Yeah,
it's a bit deep. I don't remember the other dude's name.
That was controversial.
So just
Was it though?
So just as a recap for anyone who didn't watch the match, essentially, Joshua Schmidt was against someone. I think his name is Vincenzo, maybe. I don't know, but anyway, the point is he was playing against this guy, and game 3. Joshua Schmidt is in a relatively winning position. There's about 5 or 6 minutes left on the clock, and his opponent is... Now, I'm not going to say he was slow playing, because genuinely, he didn't seem like he was playing super slow. But I will say that if time rules weren't a thing, it's almost guaranteed that Joshua would have won. And if they had like 30 or 40 more seconds, it's almost guaranteed Joshua would have won. But unfortunately, during the match, what we saw happen is that... Joshua ran out of time, attempted to go to battle fate, essentially, so his opponent does a bunch of plays, passes turn to Josh, and then Josh attempts to go straight from essentially draw phase to battle phase, and then the judges are like, no, and he loses the game as a result of that. So what do we think, guys? What do you think about time rules and about that game in general?
I think I'm just going to quote what Josh actually said on his Twitter. I say quote. I'll try and paraphrase it. He didn't seem to have any bad feelings about it. He understood it was a mechanic of the game, and he handled that like a champ, so fair play to him for that.
Yeah.
He's probably one of the greatest Yu-Gi-Oh players of all time, let's not lie to ourselves. But I do think that watching that game, there were a lot of actions that Vincenzo, is it? I apologise if I get your name wrong.
The name's hard, man.
Yeah. But it didn't seem like, he was slow playing at all. Like, there were a lot of actions that he could have made. It was just an unfortunate situation, I think, and it just so happens that obviously it's on one of the final rounds of a huge Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. Obviously, it's something that's going to come up, but I believe Josh did say, yeah, they are right. You can't go from draw directly to battle because there were things that he could have done. Again, if I'm misquoting, I do apologise.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just seems like it was a bit of an unfortunate one. But the time rules are. Well, let's put it this way: I've never met anyone who likes them.
You see, I think it's a weird one. I think it does take a little bit of context and a little bit of perception, because I always thought to myself, if I was in that situation and I was Vincento, I might have said that wrong.
I feel like we should just call him like Vino or something. Like, what all
He's got,
bloody
like,
names.
3 different names already. But if I was him, I probably
Bob.
would have done the same thing. I would have said, "Hold on, I wanna do something in standby phase, or I wanna
Yeah.
do something in main phase." Do you know what I mean? Because it is there's prizes on the line in terms of like bragging rights or whatever. But it's just the mechanic of the game. Like you just can't do that. Do you know what I mean? So I get where Josh is coming from in terms of his frustration. But in terms of like the time rules, it just is what it is, and it got me thinking like, what would be a better solution? Because we have to have something, but currently this is not the best way to resolve things. If you get what I mean.
Yeah, it's also looking back on it, like the situation was, it when you're on, as Jimothy said, like when you have that much prizes and stuff on the line, and you're in the finals of a big tournament such as that, like keeping your eye on time is definitely key. And obviously when you're playing against a deck like a Shizu Tier, like, that's going to take up such a large amount of time. And I think it just comes down to it happens, like we've all been in a situation like that where we wish we could have had, like, known that we could have had that little bit more time. But to be honest, as Dan said, he handled it really well. He knows that it's a mechanic of the game. And
also, sorry to cut you off, Nathan, but with respect, like, I don't think that's something that I'd even be able to comment on until I was in that position. I mean, yeah, I've been in that position in terms of, you know, am I going to top a regional or am I going to, you know, win locals? That's completely different to, you know, being live streamed to like a few thousand people on a YCS. The nerves that must go through your head, like, time's probably one of the last things on your mind, I think.
I
don't think it would be fair for me personally to comment on, like, how they view the situation, because it's just not something that I know.
It's not.
You were in it. I'm just.
Well, you guys know I have a big mouth, so I feel confident to comment about it. So, what am I thinking? Oh no, I agree with everything everyone said. I'm joking. But I will say that. Do you know what? I did really feel bad for Joshua, just because it would have been nice for him to get the back to back, and like I could tell, it's like you could see on stream he was in the moment. He was upset. He was begging the judge. You saw him do it, please, in the moment. It's like, I felt so bad for him, but I genuinely couldn't. Like, people in the chat were roasting this Vincenzo guy, saying, "Oh, he's slow playing Italians, blah blah blah," all of this BS, and it was like, he really wasn't. Like, he was doing plays that weren't relevant. I do agree with that, but. He wasn't slow playing. If you have a valid play, make a valid play. Like, why would you just give your opponent the free win? I don't know, just for some random moral victory. Like, that don't make sense to me. So yeah.
Did he? I didn't watch the last round of the YCS. I think I was, for whatever reason. Did he? Did he end up winning the YCS or not?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, yeah.
No, if he was on Flunder, then I don't.
No, as in he was against Flunder, so I think he did.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, he would have known in it. Like, I think anyway, he would have known that once that match finished, there were going to be people in this chat roasting him, and that would have just. You're meant to be going into the final of a YCS thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in a final of a YCS, not thinking, oh man, people are going to think I'm a dickhead for this. I'm like, obviously I don't know what's going through my man's head in it, but I
feel like if it was me, I'll be thinking in my head, oof, I'm so sad that these people care as I like stroke my YCS winning results and shit. Like, oh, you guys are upset. Oh, how does it feel? You guys didn't even top. Yeah, that's how
fair enough, innit? Fair enough.
Yeah, I do. He probably went into that just thinking, yeah, it just is what it is, because it was literally like I would have done the exact same thing. Exactly, going there to win. Like, if it was locals and he was trying to test something out or something like that, maybe you do have an extra couple of seconds and that. But in a YCS, cameras on you, you are just gonna try and do everything in your power that's legal to win. And he didn't do anything wrong. Yeah. But I think it was more so the Joshua Smith reaction that escalated everything, if you got what I'm saying, because he was not happy.
You could even tell during the stream he was like, you could tell he was pissed off, because it's like, and the thing. So one thing they have a lot of pro players have said about, and people have been on feature matches, that you can't tell the time in feature match because there's no clock or anything, and so you don't know. And so like when you're playing in a round, you can kind of see the clock and you can be like, okay, I have like literally 30 seconds and stuff. But in the feature match, you might have a bit of an idea, but you don't really know what time is, so it's a lot harder to play around time on a feature match as compared to when you're just playing regularly.
Okay.
Yeah, most definitely.
I think for the time rules, and this is just my take on it, I think once it's time, the duel ends. I don't even think you should get like an extra finish the phase or anything. I think it should just be that's time, bang, who's got the highest life points.
So the problem I have with that is just that I don't like the whole life points as a barometer, especially because the best example for me is a deck like Dynamorphia. There are decks that actually use life points as a resource, and it's almost, for example, now Dynamorphia basically can never win in time. I feel like I think I do agree though that there should be a more stricter kind of barometer of this is time, now it's time. Going to the end of the phase isn't any better than going to the end of turn or not. It's like
no, not at all. Because if you're in your main phase and time's called, you're like, all right, okay, I now I can chill and get to my whatever.
Yeah, one of the things that I've said before is that I feel like in terms of Swiss, especially, they should just be more okay with having draws. I don't see a reason why not. Like, because everyone's always like, oh, there'll be plenty of draws, but I actually don't see a problem because if I draw against you in Swiss, we're both losing, so both players are incentivized to play quickly still. Otherwise, we just end up with a draw. And then once it gets to top cut, what they did at Euros, which was really good, is they did the 3-round system that they used to have before. I don't see a reason for that. And then semi-finals and finals, I'm 100% of the opinion, to be honest, that it should just be play it out. Though I get why they do it.
There is a time on the finals.
There is. So finals. So generally, though it varies slightly, finals has 50 or 60 minutes, and then everything else is 40 minutes. So I think some events were doing 50 minutes as a trial. I don't know if that's a thing anymore in America. But yeah, so on feature, most of the finals are 60 or 50 minutes, and they took that from back in COVID when we used to do remote duels. Yeah,
I do agree with like this potentially even semi-final and finals. I think it should just be like a duel because it's a spectacle as well, isn't it? We want to see a result, and that's the only way we're going to see one without it being influenced by anything. Because going back to what you mentioned about Dynamorphia, I think life points can be manipulated quite easily in this game, especially with the amount of cards that we've got, and having that as just like your benchmark of whether or not you're going to win or lose a game. It can be very easily like circumvented in the sense that you could kind of just make random plays and then just burn your opponent with 10 seconds left and then pass turn.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think just having life points as the single like deciding factor of whether or not you win, it's a bit much.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's horrible. And I've played Dynamorphia, so I know it. You're killing yourself. Like, you're helping your opponent by putting monsters on the field. Like,
literally.
You know what I mean? So, I get it.
I think judges should also just be stricter as well about kind of punishing people for slow playing as well, because I think in this game, it's got to the stage now where I genuinely see people do things like check their grave when there's no valid plays. You've checked your grave like 4 times. Either your memory is bad, so you deserve the loss, or there's nothing in your grave and you're slow playing, so you deserve the loss. Either way, there's no reason to check your grave that many times in one turn unless you have a valid play. So like, I do think judges in general should be more just strict about, do this, do that. Like, now you get a slow play warning because you actually are slow playing.
Yeah, that's you.
Yeah.
In saying that though, I think with the amount of cards that are in the game at the moment, I think it does well to check your grave, because I'm just thinking of like some of like the bestial cards, the Shizu cards. There's a lot that can just happen like without any kind of warning or.
On the subject of bestials, Jimothy, do we think that the bestials have changed the game forever?
Summonable DD Crow is nice.
Yes, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And I can say this from first-hand experience, just playing at locals. Like, I've been playing Despia most recently, and I've just been getting destroyed in end phase. Like, before I even get to say Albion's name, he's already in the banish zone. So,
Even I've been playing Despia as well, and it's like I've had to change the whole way I play the deck to basically ignore the grave, because I've just accepted that if it's in the grave, it's not staying there. So
that's one of the worst things now, is that anything that happens in graveyard now will just easily become a target. So you basically just have to change.
Anything light or dark, but even so, like, how much of the game is that?
That's quite a large. I'm not going to go into numbers because
it's a decent whack, though.
It's a decent lot of the card pool, so you're always going to have some form of target.
Yeah,
they kind of remind me. Do you remember when Phantasme first came out?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a similar kind of feeling to that. Like, I think anyway. But yeah, I think it's insane. Like, I've not seen a set of super rares this expensive in a while. I've seen people selling play sets of the supers for £75.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's
I
not
looked this
Yeah.
morning, Bestial.
I haven't-
Magnum is like flipping 18 quid on eBay. I'm just like, oh my
I
god.
haven't seen anything this expensive since branded openings were like 25, 30 quid a pop.
Oh wait, no,
And that-
Aluba got
Aluba was
took this.
ridiculous. Like that shot up from around about. I remember because when I first bought that playset, they were around about what 15, 20 quid each, and then they shot up to 60, 70s within the space of branded Fusion being revealed overnight.
They went to like 100, didn't they? At one
They
point?
literally got.
it was.
Do you know what was funny? They got over 100, and then like 2 days later, they announced it was in the structure deck, and then it just like, oh, I don't know if it was structure deck. No, it was in Ghost from the Past 2, and then it just
was in Ghost
collapsed.
from Past 2. And they realised, and they revealed that also it wasn't going to be short printed, so it made the deck.
Then
so
branded opening went up in it.
Yeah, brand opening and Brandon Red both went up like crazy as well. But back to what you were saying, Daniel, about hand traps, about Bestials. I actually really agree with that, and I think tier right now is the perfect example of decks. What we're seeing more is decks that have in archetype hand traps, which I actually like, by the way. Because if you look at tier, part of what makes tier Shizu so good is that they have Kelbeck, they have Herald, they have Havness. It's like they have the Bestials. They don't actually have to waste their time playing crappy cards like Ash and Ghost Ogre and stuff. They've got all the good hand traps as part of their engine, and that's what makes the deck so good. So I think it's definitely seems to be a philosophy that Konami is going more and more towards, where it's like decks have their removal in the archetype. They have their hand traps in archetype. So if you even look at Chartrelar, their spells and traps are actually good. Same with Tier Elements. Their spells and traps are actually good. And again, it's like it's something I like because it means that it's easier to balance the deck and give it weaknesses if you force them to play a lot of their cards of their deck, but then they do have options, so it's like you can give them a distinct weakness. So Konami, for example, could have made Heartbeats a really, really bad spell and trap removal, but it's still searchable. And so now as a tier player, you have spell and trap removal, but that's a definitive weakness your deck has. So, yeah.
I do like them. I think as well it gives decks a bit more of an identity. Like I'm not saying that they didn't before, but it's so easy to like mesh different strategies together and just have a bit of a pile type of a deck. Whereas now it's a bit more of a refined kind of approach to deck building, if you get what I mean. You know you're going to be playing a small Ishizu package, but for the most part you're playing to elements. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the main focus of the deck. Whereas before you're seeing like Owlitch with Cyburst cards and just crazy things. And I'm not saying it's bad, but it just like it doesn't really have an identity as a standalone deck, if you get what I mean. It's just...
not going back to the days of like what was it? Danger Thunder Drag, like Danger Thunder.
Yeah, just mash up kind of. Yeah.
Just as a quick roundtable, as a quick question. I personally, I actually hate pile decks. Who here likes pile decks? Because I don't like them, but I recognize that's just my own opinion.
After playing a pile deck, I can see the appeal, definitely. It's like you can't knock it till you try it, basically. And like I've never been. The first pile deck I actually tried was the Danger Thunder build, and this was right when I first started playing the game, so I had no confidence in playing the deck, so I dropped it almost instantly because I had no knowledge. And then after playing the game for a few years, and then picking up another deck, which was the Punk Tier Element mesh build that I built with Jake. Well, Jake built and I played it. But
I wonder if we'll ever go a podcast without you, Bill, bringing this deck up.
No, because it was so
I was just thinking, I was like, this sounds familiar, doesn't it?
He's like his name dropping a celebrity in it.
Ciao, Jake, I love you. But like, no, because it was a really, really fun deck to play, and obviously
it looked wacky, to be fair.
Yeah, stuff like that are just, I don't know. I like the appeal.
I don't like pile decks, but I'm not a combo player, so I feel like my opinion's not really valid here.
No, Runic is a combo deck, you know. It's a combo deck in disguise.
Oh, no! That is...
Out in me like this, man.
I like the idea of power decks. It's innovative. You know what I mean? It gives the player base some creative license, but I just feel like if Konami's printing archetypes, you should somewhat kind of like bend towards their archetype. I'm not saying that you can't put in engines, but when it's just a big pile of cards of just multiple different decks, I just think like
it's just irritating, isn't it? And it's also hard to balance as well. Like my problem.
Anything, like,
oh, sorry, you go, Nate.
Okay. Also, the weirdest thing is just like I remember when we were all playing Piled when the Brave engine first came out, and now look at like, God knows, 3 months down the line, no one's picked up the card. Like,
Yeah, and it's because part of the reason why Brave even got kind of shut out is just, again, it's like the overwhelming power of Sprite and Tia. There was a bit of kind of Brave Sprite being played before Magnificent Mavens. That was a bit of a tongue twister for me, but yeah, there was a bit of Sprite being played, of Brave Sprite. But now it's like, again, it's like, how the heck are you going to play Brave? They're chucking like 18 cards in your graveyard on turn one. You're going to lose half your Brave engine before you even get to play it.
Literally.
yeah, true.
Yeah, but we're gonna go on to a very awesome question, and I'm actually gonna let Jimothy set it up. He had a very good idea.
All right.
For a question to ask everyone. So, yeah, lay it on us, bro.
So, I was thinking, what lengths have you gone to in order to acquire a Yu-Gi-Oh card for a deck? Now, I'll give you a little bit of time to have a think.
I'm going to need an example because you're making this sound a bit mad.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is this able to say on the podcast?
I'll give you mine just to kind of like set the bar, basically.
Yeah.
For a time, just before I moved out, I was collecting all the change around my house. I'm talking like, like the pennies that fall down the back of your sofa. Yeah. Just like behind the fridge and all that kind of stuff. So I collected them up.
With the big bottle with the pennies.
Yeah, the rose quality street tin with the crackers in it.
Oh no!
So I collected I think it must have been about £23. I remember because I took it to Asda and they've got the coin sorter machine.
Oh yeah.
And it broke. I broke the machine. I broke the machine trying to get money. Yeah. So I think it was a Jinzo I was trying to buy. Because it's my favorite card, by the way. I went to buy a Jinzo and I broke the machine. Like, I tipped £23 in like 1s and 2p's in the machine. Like, there's a big queue behind me. Everyone's looking at me like, what's this guy doing? And then they see me walk out of Asda. And I just literally broke the machine. And I was like, I can't believe I did that. And it's only after I got the card I realised, like, I actually went to Asda with 20p's, 2p's, 1p's and put it in the machine just so I could buy a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
That's
but oh well, I'm going to play my deck anyway.
Yeah.
Determination.
I rate it though, I rate it. There's one thing that springs to mind, but it's not for me. But it's for Nate actually that always comes to mind when it's something like this.
No.
I remember when we were labbing Dogmatica back in like when it was coming out.
Oh no!
There were a lot of locals in it, and I think it was just before it came out. And I remember you were going nuts trying to sell like all your stuff so you could get Dogmatica, because these times the deals were like 65, 70 quid.
Jeez.
Yeah, and I remember like I sold out because back then Dogmatica came out I think around about August 2020, and round about then it was my birthday. But there had been some financial stuff, so I was basically selling off all of my cards to pretty much get a hold of these Dogmaticas. The Dogmatica engine, because you could play it with Invoked, and back then Invoked was my bread and butter, so I was like, yes, we will sell everything to afford the 3 Nadir servants. And
the funniest thing was you pulled one out of an entry pack.
Yeah, so I managed to get 2, played the tournament, and then pulled it in my last pack, and I was like, yeah, let's go. And then I sold the engine not too long after that, but we don't talk about
I think the biggest thing that I can think of is a similar kind of thing. So it's similar kind of time. We all remember when Dragoon was heralded as like the end of the game, rah rah rah. So these were COVID times, and I'd pretty much like I decided that I wanted to get Dragoon, and I wanted to play it in Subterra because it was a dark time in it. Dark time.
Oh,
so I was like,
no.
right, okay, let's see what these pre-sale sales on Dragoon are saying. And I'm like, obviously it's like 35, 40 quid, which is good for the time. So I'm like, right, okay. And like, I was like, I can't justify buying a playset of this for a rogue deck, but I want to play this deck. So I ended up just going through like my binder and just going through everything that essentially wasn't a staple. Because I think I needed to get money for some other real life factor anyway. So I think that was kind of just like the push that kind of forced me to do it. So I ended up selling like a load of like deck cores and like random cards that would be worth stuff, you know, like your random like secret rare blue horses or whatever. And then I think I got however much it was for it, and then I bought these Dragoons, and I was really happy with the price I got them for. And then I didn't end up going to a real life locals until about a year and a half later because of COVID, so I was fuming.
Yeah.
And I think by this point I'd already sold 2 of the Dragoons.
Oh.
To be honest,
Because
like
I found happiness again in it. I stopped playing Guru.
I think like what's so an embarrassing story. I think to the lengths that I've gone to get cards has been ridiculous.
You're outing yourself here a bit, now.
I am outing myself a bit here because oh god. So I ended up getting rid of. I think we played the Sanctum Squad regional this time last year, and this was when I made a very big deck error, and
Oh, I remember this.
and then decided to basically full Joker arc. Decided to go back to Invoked, and I didn't want to just go back to normal Invoked. I played the engine for so long that I wanted to go and do and like buy max rarity stuff, and I think I got rid of most of my collection or most of the cards that I had on me that I wasn't playing at the time, and I picked up ulti invocations, and they looked so nice in person. Like this is the first time that I'd actually owned ultis to collect. But the issue that I was having was that once that deck then rotated out of the format, they would just be sitting in the binder. And unfortunately, one of them had a little nick on the corner as well, so I was gutted, man. And when you spend like that much money, I think they were sitting at around about, I'd say,
It was a pretty
90.
penny, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 90 to 100 quid per copy.
Gosh.
And I was just like, why have I just spent money?
See, this is just something I can never understand in it, because like I don't buy shiny cardboard. I buy the cheap version of the same card because it's the same card in it. But
you're not a materialistic person. I'll give you that.
So, you know what? I used to be very similar to you. In fact, not even used to. I still am very similar to you, Daniel, in that I don't. Yeah, I always get the lowest rarity. But recently, for example, I've been building a high rarity Despia deck, and it's the first time. Do you know what it is? I think it's a combination of things. I think firstly, most decks I just don't care about in terms of their aesthetic and stuff. But Despia, even when it came out, I liked it. I wanted to play it as soon as it came out. I just didn't because I don't usually like playing the meta. And then also, it was a case of I was at a stage where it was like there was no incentive to spend. Like I have a certain amount of money I spend on Yu-Gi-Oh every month, and it's almost like there's nothing meta I want to buy. There's no staples I need. So it was like, you know what? Yeah, why not splurge a bit? Why not have some fun? So like, while I do get, for me, it's like I don't see myself ever collecting loads of ultis and stuff. But for example, for my Despia deck, for example, I'm trying to bling that whole thing out. And it's like it's every once in a while I feel like it hits, so it's like, yeah, I really want to take it to the max.
Ulti Alubas though. Oh my god.
Ulti Alubas are gorgeous. Yeah.
I've just picked up the core again, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
See, that leads me nicely onto my next point, Nathan, because out of anyone I've ever met, I can safely say, and I mean this with all the love in my heart, that you have bought and sold the same deck cores as many times as I've had. And I don't mean this as a par in it, because I know I've done it with a couple of decks.
No, it's fine. Like,
the question I've got to you guys, it's a bit of a double question, really. I think it's a bit of an interesting one. What's the deck that you've bought, sold, and then bought again the most times? Or if you don't want like that, what's the shortest amount of time you've had a deck core for?
Right. Do you want to go through them?
I'm gonna cheat a bit, but it's still a horrible answer. Mine is a specific card, Pot of Prosperity. I have bought and sold that so many, and I'm not talking about the cheap Pot of. I'm talking about I bought and sold Pot of Prosperity probably about 6 times, like play sets, and I just it was always a bad decision. I always lost money in it. I don't know why the heck I keep doing it, but
how many times, if you had to guess?
Yeah, like 6 times. Like it got to the point basically where the last time I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna lose money on these. I've accepted it. I refuse to allow myself to sell these again because. Yeah, oh my gosh. It's because you need it's the kind of card you need for a rogue deck.
Yeah.
And I play a lot of rogue decks.
It's like it's a staple, and
so it's like,
you just like
so I'd buy it and then I'd switch decks and you guys know me as well. I play like a different deck every week. So I'd buy it and then next week I play a deck that doesn't need it, so I'd sell it. And then it's like the next week I want to play Midolces and then now I can't because I don't have prosperity. That card is my answer. 100%.
I think for me it'd probably be Earth Machine.
Yeah.
Interesting.
the funniest thing is like I've got 3 copies of that deck
What?
currently. Currently, I'm not even lying. Like
I'm
I
gonna
don't
need
know
some
why I do
context
to
here, bro.
myself. So I bought one, and then I lost the deck core because
Oh, okay.
I've got like over 100 decks in my house scattered about, and I thought I'd got rid of it. So I thought I'll buy it again. Then I sold some pieces from it just to like fund some other cards, and then I seen the version with is it Gear Frame?
Yeah.
Yeah, I seen that version because it was the combo version I was running before, and I was like, this looks interesting. So I started getting a hold of my skill drains, and then I just bought another core, and then lo and behold, I found the original core all pristine, and then I've just got 3 of them, and I'm just like, what? Why did I do this?
Yeah.
And the thing is, I can't even explain to like I've got a girlfriend that knows that I spend money on Yu-Gi-Oh. I didn't even tell her because I was just like, oh, she's asking me why we not eating 50-50 bread? Why we eating this 18 pence bread? I'm like, times are hard. Spent all my money on ad machines.
You go first because I mine's too.
Yours is a long story, isn't it? I think. See, like I'm very much like going back to what Fab said about Part of Prosperities. Like I bought and sold Prosperities, but I bought them I bought them when Blazing Vortex came out. I think I sold Emancipators for them when they were still worth something, and then I sold them at the end of 2021 to put towards some real life stuff. And I think I got like I think I got what I paid for them. So I was like, okay, yeah, like I've got my play out of these cards. That's fine. But I think. There's a running joke between some of my friends who who no longer play the game, because we all started playing it around end 2017, 2018, and the very first meta deck I picked up was Sky Striker, and I was looking through my posts on the Yu-Gi-Oh trade group earlier, because I knew that I was going to ask this question, and it turns out I didn't know this, I bought and sold Sky Striker 7 times.
What?
Oh
I know.
My gosh.
And I don't think I've touched the deck. I mean, I bought the deck again when Engage came back because I got gassed in it. Like,
Yeah.
And then I took it to one locals and then I sold it. But then I think other than that, maybe Invoked. But I don't really see that as like a deck in it. I just see that as an engine. So like it's a bit different. But yeah, weirdly, probably Skull Striker. Or is there another one? No, like I don't buy a lot of deck cores. Truth be told, like I don't like having the choice of what to play.
Like,
Yeah,
you're
that's
you're a
definitely a
minimalist.
good strategy. Like I would say, if you're someone who struggles to stick to a deck, that's one of the best strategies. Just don't keep a lot of decks.
Yeah,
Take the choice out of your
Like,
hands.
Like, always keep the staples. Always sell the deck cores. But no, go on. Before we move.
Okay. So, I'll start off with the most recent. I think I've bought and sold branded 3 times.
Oh
like-
no, it's been more than that.
It's definitely not been more than that because of the fact I've already.
You 4 now.
No, it's definitely not because like I've sold branded 3 times and then I've just I think this is the 3rd time I picked it up because I bought everything. No, you're right because it's 4 because I originally picked it up and then I picked it up 3 times after that because it's been the case that I was like playing Sortol as well at that time, and Sortol is a deck that I also flipped in between like quite a bit because I'd basically like to describe myself as a jack of all trades. Like I'll pick up a deck if I feel like I'm vibing with it and play it for as long as I can. Mainly this has been fusion decks. So, but to be honest, like the only fusion deck that I've actually managed to keep a hold of for so long was like Shadows, but that was when I was still playing it with Invoked, which Invoked I've sold like 2 times, I think, so far. There have also been like staples that I've thrown or sold because of the fact of they were expensive at the time that I needed the cash for. Like I think I bought and sold access. Like I've owned 3 access codes in the space of like 10 months.
The secret ones as well.
Yeah, I own 2 secrets and then sold a gold one. It's one of those things.
Your parents don't listen to this podcast now.
I'd be set on a fucking a budget plan for ages.
No,
but like,
don't listen to this podcast.
the thing about it is like,
Spend all this one woman. Maybe I
fine,
don't understand. You can search a card and then draw another one.
Gotta find one first, mate. But like, the thing is that I'm not a material. Sometimes I'm just not a materialistic person, and other times I just want to splash the cash. Like, it'll depend on how I feel. But really, when I hyperfixate on a game like this, and this is a really weird thing. It's just like I'll either spend the most amount of money that I want to spend to get the most enjoyment out of the game. If that means I buy into a meta deck, then I buy into a meta deck, and then when I get bored of it, I'll just try and see if I can get rid of it. Like, the game to me is all about having fun. If I can enable myself to have the most fun that I know I can have possible, and I don't mind trying new things, because you need to have that experience to know, like, to progress sometimes. And but then, like, the longest deck that I think I've played, and the one that I had the most success with, was definitely branded, which is why I probably picked it up and sold it so many times. But that's when I've like been coming in and out of the game, and I guess I just had an affinity for it. But yeah,
I love this. This is like a Alcoholics Anonymous admission.
He's finally letting it all out.
Actually, is.
Just slowly letting go of the demons. Like, I've done this before.
Telling everyone about your cardboard addiction.
Jimothy, I'd be interested to hear your answer to this question, because this is something we discussed on the podcast last episode. So, like, you mentioned that you've got like a bag of different deck cores. So, like, do you have like a specific one that you always find yourself coming back to?
Yeah, Plunder Patrol.
Yeah.
Without a shadow of a doubt. That's probably my favorite deck, and I'm looking forward to the new support. So it can actually be somewhat viable. The new
support is sick.
Yeah.
It just fixes everything.
It makes your bad matchups playable, and I think when was it? I think it was like VW format when Calamities was running around. I tried to play the deck, and obviously VW's bunch of earths and wins, and it broke my heart. Because I couldn't play.
You guys got a new ship there now. You got that.
That's what I mean.
Ship now. Yeah.
That's what I mean. So when the support comes out, but yeah, that's the deck that I will always bounce back to, regardless. I'll always look to like update that deck. So that's my baby.
It is a fun deck, and it's a good brave deck as well, which is quite nice.
Yeah. Speaking of the new support, actually, so obviously we're in a tier 0 format in theory. But Photon Hyperwave's coming out soon, and there's a lot of like really cool support. Obviously for a lot of different road decks. Obviously Jimothy mentioned Plunder Patrol. There's actual Springen support coming out, which I'm weirdly excited for. So, like, is there anything? Are there any strategies coming up that you guys have got your eye on that you want to pick up, or like you think that could make a bit of a splash?
Clearly, it's going to be Valence, isn't it? We're also excited about Valence, right?
I've actually built that. That deck's a bit silly.
Yeah. There's what?
A lot of things, but then not a lot at the same time.
Yeah,
you end on a fusion monster. Well, the new one that's coming out that kind of like swaps places, and you can get a search and a pop off it, and it can play for a lot of negates. You can play Lava Golem, so it can break boards somewhat. But I think the reason why I like it is the removal's a bit weird. So the field spells allow you to place one card from your opponent or one monster from your opponent in the spell and trap card zone, and then you pop it in the spell and trap card zone, and then that's the removal, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's just a unique way of interacting, which is probably why I was drawn to the deck.
That's pretty cool, to be fair.
Yeah, man, it's good. But in terms of like the new support, I'm looking forward to seeing what Kashtira can do.
Yeah, Kashtira I think is going to be the deck to come out. I think most people are going to go to.
I won't put it as looking forward to, but
yeah, well, you know,
terrified.
More than likely going to be playing.
I'll be interested to see if it ends up living up to the hype it has over in the OCG.
I 100% think it will.
Yeah, I also think they will.
Banishing it, you know how Ishizu puts 18 cards in your deck on turn 1? Castrolard banishes your opponent's deck face down 18 cards on turn 1. So I mean that. Yeah. The worst
thing that I have like looking into like the OCG, and I said this on the last podcast, is like it's going to be a worry to see whether or not it actually can compete, because the Kashtira stuff is very, very good. But then again, we have to see how much it stacks up to Ishizu tier, and whether or not Ishizu tier does get hit.
In the OCG, tier was still clapping its cheeks 100%.
It
made no difference. Tier just destroyed the deck. It did not care at all. So.
Oh, it's fine. We have one Havness, one planet. That's fine. We're still gonna, clap.
You know what it is? I think I'm drawn to like uniqueness. That's why I've got a fun place in my heart for like Fluendaries, just because they just do something that no other deck really does.
I was watching your, I think it was your most recent blog earlier actually, Jimothy, and you were talking about you played against a couple of Flunder guys, and you were saying about how it ended up like you never used to like it, but it ended up being this deck that you kind of really was drawn to. So
yeah. For that reason, it's unique in the way that it plays, and I think that's something that that's why I picked up Valence, because it's something that I've never seen before, and it's just another way to play the game that I'm really fond of, if you get what I mean. And it's just
100%, man.
It's a nice experience.
So, guys, we're closing in on an hour. So, I used to do this, but I'm going to start doing it again. I'm going to ask a question. This is a wild question.
Go on.
But, yeah. Anyway, so, last question for the show. If you could choose, okay, you have to choose one of the two. You're either going to have constipation for the entire day or diarrhea for the entire day. Which one would you choose?
Oh, no.
100%. Have any of you ever been like properly constipated?
Yes.
Like,
mate, I've had to be constipated on the.
Well, so first we need to get everyone's answers. Sorry, so Daniel said diarrhea. He's
100%.
firmly stayed of diarrhea. Jimothy, what are you on?
I'm gonna take constipation. I'll be honest.
Woo, okay, constipation. Alright, now what about you, bro?
Oh god, nah, it's coming all out, mate. I ain't holding anything in.
come on, mate. Poo gang rise up in it.
Poo gang rise up.
We've got a 2-2 draw because I'm 100%. I'm with Jimothy on this. I'll 100% take constipation, bro.
Why would you do that?
Look, yeah, for me personally, as someone who used to have very horrible IBS, bro, it's all got to stay in there. I don't want none of that stuff coming out, bro. I can't do the whole diarrhea thing, bro. That's
nah. So like, I could tell you that the worst possible place that you want constipation is on a tour bus somewhere in Germany, just like no toilets around, and you're just there trying to hold. It's the worst thing.
I'd argue it'd be worse to have diarrhea than constipation.
Nah, but it's like when you know nothing's coming out. Like,
I don't think it needs to be on a tour bus. I just don't want to.
You could just be at home.
100%. I'm telling you, if I have to take like time out of my day to just go and sit on a toilet and do what, like, so be it, innit? You can have your phone on the toilet. You can do whatever.
Exactly.
Like, walking around all day, folded over. Like,
you're telling me you wouldn't like sit on a toilet just watching your phone and then like all that, like, bliss?
With a pint of water just coming out of me every 20 minutes. No. I'll pass, thanks.
Alright, guys, on that lovely note, we are going to sign off on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Show. Stay hydrated, guys. Stay constipated, guys. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to our amazing guests, Jimothy and Sanctum Squad, as usual. It's been a great time, and we're going to see you all next week. Peace.
Subscribe to Jimothy, subscribe to Fab, subscribe to Sanctum Squad.
Peace.